All right, welcome. This is team 3 for the business analysis of a global retail company. Our team consists of Baisiwa Hammond, Lindsay Hurt, I am Brittany Leonard, Manana Morris, and then Jonathan Nelson. So for background and objective, our company is dedicated to wowing its customers. And by doing so, we're going to analyze the relationships between promotional sales, total sales, and a few other predictors to see how we can increase our market share. So the main purpose was to understand and identify relationships between promotional markdowns and total sales, provide analysis of markdowns and identify any other contributing factors to sales, and provide data to assess probable expansion opportunities into new markets, including e-commerce. The data that's being analyzed is listed on the screen. And in the next slide, we'll discuss which tests we actually used. We ran frequency analyses, graphs and reports, independent t-tests, ANOVA analysis, linear regressions, including simple and multiple, and correlation analysis in the SPSS program to give us our data. The first 3 questions we answered using a frequency analysis, running the descriptives, and then the last one we also used the explore function. So did the total sales exceed $3 million? Based on these tests, we rejected our null hypothesis because the total sales was actually more than 3 million. For question 2, did the average of total sales for the year exceed $20,000? Again, based on the frequency analysis and descriptives function, the total sales was above $20,000, so we rejected our null hypothesis. And for question 3, was the typical variability of total sales greater than $10,000? Based on the Explorer, the descriptives, and the frequency analysis, the variability was greater than $10,000, so we reject our null hypothesis again. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to my colleague, Jonathan.
Thank you very much, Brittany. The first question that we're going to discuss is, we analyzed whether or not annual sales were equal across all of the stores. To analyze this, we pulled statistics and plotted those on a bar chart. And from this, we can see that the annual sales are not, in fact, equal across all of the stores. So we reject our null hypothesis. The next question that we sought to answer was whether or not annual sales from the markdowns were equal across all of the departments. To do this again, we pulled statistics and plotted those on a bar chart, and we conclude that, well, there is significant variability across the departments, and we're going to reject our null hypothesis. The next question that we sought to answer was whether or not annual sales were impacted by whether or not that day of the week was a holiday or not. To do this, we plotted these statistics again on a bar chart. And from this, we can clearly see that there is a significant difference in sales on holidays and non-holidays. And with that, I'd like to introduce you to Baisiwa Hammond.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. My name is Baisiwa Hammond, and I'm continuing from here with analysis on questions 7, 8, and 9, beginning with question 7 and comparing average total sales across locations. Was Munich the top performing store by more than $10,000? Now, running the univariate analysis while answering this question, it was revealed that Dubai was the top performing store and not Munich. As a result, we believe that the null analysis or hypothesis is spot on, and we therefore reject the research hypothesis. Moving on now to question 8. How is the consumer price index and total sales for the year related? So we're back to our SPSS, where we ran the correlation analysis and all relevant tests, bearing in mind that when the p-value is greater than 0.05, there is no significant relationship between the variables. But when the p-value is less than 0.05, then there is a relationship. So in this analysis, the p-value was 0.006, which is significant, and it's obvious at this point that there is that significant relationship between the CPI and the total sales. We therefore reject the null hypothesis and accept the alternative hypothesis where executives believe that the CPI and the total sales for the year are related. Moving on, and in this next slide, which is question 9, we also conducted tests to ascertain the relationship between unemployment and total sales. And as captured here, the p-value is greater than 0.05, meaning there is no significant correlation between unemployment and total sales. So the null hypothesis stands. In other words, the two variables are not related. I'll hand over this presentation now to my colleague, Manana Morris. Over to you, Manana.
Thank you. Hi, this is Manana. I'll be doing the analysis for questions 10 through 12. Here we conducted testing to answer the question whether temperature has an impact on total sales for the year. To answer this question, we did the linear regression analysis and bivariate analysis, and results are the following. It appears that the temperature and total sales for the year are correlated negatively. We can see the R value for temperature on Pearson's correlation is minus 0.296, and the significance level, p-value, is less than 0.001, which indicates that it's statistically very significant. And negative correlation indicates that when the temperature goes down, the sales go up. And since the significance level was less than 0.05, we have to reject the null hypothesis. Moving on to the question 11. Here we are being asked to compare multiple predictors and identify if the CPI, Consumer Price Index, is the best predictor of total sales when it's compared to the CPI, unemployment, and temperature. To answer this question, we conducted multilinear regression analysis. We use CPI, temperature, and unemployment as our predictors. The results show us that CPI and temperature both are statistically significant, with p-values being less than 0.05 for both. CPI shows p-value being at 0.12, and temperature is less than 0.001. Unemployment, on the other hand, has p-value that is greater than 0.05, which indicates that it is not statistically significant. When we are looking at the part correlation side of the analysis, we can conclude, after we square those numbers for top predictors, we will get the percentages. And we have temperature. With that, we have the values of 6% at temperature, and CPI is at 3%. As a result of that, we will conclude that temperature is a better predictor than CPI, twice as much. So our null hypothesis is accurate. Moving on to the question number 12 is answering the question whether Munich is the top performing store for housewares, selling significantly more on average than other stores. To conduct this analysis, we plotted the graph chart and ran the descriptive statistics. And as a result, we can see that Munich is not the top performing store for the housewares. In fact, it was the third best store. And accordingly, we accept the null hypothesis. With that, I will now pass this presentation on to my colleague, Lindsay.
Thank you, Manana. My name is Lindsay Hertz. I will be going over the analysis and data for the remaining questions, as well as wrapping up with our recommendations. As you can see for question 13, we conducted testing to see if the automotive department was the highest performing department across all 4 stores. And with the various testing methods in SPSS, and we plotted them on the charts, we can see that the automotive department is in fact the top performing department across all 4 stores. It accounts for 39.57% of total sales. Based on this analysis, we can conclude that the automotive department is the top performing department across all stores. And we then will, for our research hypothesis is accurate, and we reject the null hypothesis. We also conducted testing for the housewares department, women's clothing department, men's clothing department, and electronics department. You can see those in the included slides as well as the analysis and data. In the interest of time, I will not be going over those slides, but you can review those for yourselves, and I will be going to our recommendations. On the slide here, you can see that we have followed up with 3 recommendations based on the data. The first is steer away from company-wide markdowns and focus on holiday markdowns, particularly in the automotive and electronics department. Investigate why London sales are so low and convert to shop online, pick up in-store model, or to launch e-commerce sales options to meet evolving customer needs and heavily impacted by COVID-19. On the next slide, we ran data and we can see weekly sales trends varied across departments and stores. We would recommend focusing on targeted markdowns, particularly as noted before in automotive and electronic, as they are the highest performing departments. Our next recommendation would be to look at why London sales are so low. After the further analysis, if it deems well, we can convert the store to a buy online and pick up in-store option. Or if it is feasible, we recommend shutting the store down and looking for another European location with a consistently low CPI. COVID-19 has had a very heavy impact on retail, and with the impacts, as we can see on the next slide, we recommend having an e-commerce option. In an annual meeting in 2017 for the future of retail, they projected that consumer-centric industries such as retail will go through more change in the next 10 years than they have in the last 40. And according to data from IBM, the shift to e-commerce has increased in the last 5 years. 2 years ago, online purchases represented just under 14% of all retail sales. And in 2021, that figure is expected to be just under 20%. That is almost an increase of 50% in just a couple of years. And the impact of this on retail and e-commerce is immense. And consumer industries will need to adjust to accommodate those changes. On the last slide, we can see continuing data that shows just how big of an impact the pandemic has had. One case study is in 2020. Walmart, for example, the pandemic had helped to drive e-commerce sales up by 97% in 1 quarter alone. That is our presentation. Thank you so much for your time.